Sir, please, you dropped something. How a homeless kid stops billionaire CEO boss just to return wallet. Worth over $2 billion. Heavy rain, car horns, Manhattan traffic chaos, black luxury SUV stuck in gridlock, rain streaming down tinted windows, Manhattan. December 18th, 6:47 p.m. rush hour. Freezing rain turning to sleet. A black Cadillac Escalade, worth more than most people make in 5 years, sits trapped in traffic at the corner of 53rd and Lexington. Inside that SUV, Richard Castellano, 62 years old, CEO of Castellano Global Holdings. Net worth, $2.3 billion with a B. He just closed a $400 million deal. He was tired. He was ready to go home. He had no idea that in exactly 90 seconds his entire life was about to change. Sudden loud banging on car window. Small dirty hand pounding desperately on rain-covered glass. Sir, please, you dropped something. The bodyguard's first instinct, get rid of him. Another street kid, another beggar, not today. But then, Paul, stop, lower the window. And what Richard Castellano saw through that window would haunt him, would change him, would prove that the most valuable thing in the world isn't money. This is Marco Torres. He's 12 years old. He's been homeless for 47 days. He just chased that SUV for 4 city blocks in freezing rain. And in his hands, a wallet containing $8,240 in cash, a Black American Express card with no spending limit, and something worth more than $2 billion. He could have kept it. He could have disappeared into the city and no one would have ever known. Instead, he did this. Before we go any further, I need you to do something. Drop a comment right now and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Because this story, it's about to go places you won't believe. And if you think one choice, one honest choice when no one is watching, can actually change a life forever, hit that subscribe button. Because by the end of this story, you're going to want to see what happened next. Trust me, to understand what happened that night, you need to know who Richard Castellano really is. Not the Forbes profile version, not the corporate headshot. The real man. Castellano Global Holdings, 67 properties across 12 countries, real estate, tech investments, luxury hospitality. The business press called him the Wolf of Wall Street meets old money discipline. He owned buildings most people only see in movies. But here's what they don't put in the Forbes articles. Richard Castellano wasn't born into wealth. 50 years ago, he was a 14-year-old kid sleeping in Brooklyn subway stations. His father, a construction worker named Anthony, died when a scaffold collapsed on a job site in Red Hook. Richard was 13. His mother, Maria, worked 3 jobs trying to keep their rent-controlled apartment. It wasn't enough. 6 months after his father died, Richard came home from school to find an eviction notice on the door and his mother crying on the front steps. They lost everything. For 8 months, Richard lived on the streets. He slept in church basements. He washed dishes under the table at diners for cash. He learned that the world doesn't care how smart you are or how hard you try when you don't have an address. And then one day, a construction foreman named Vincent Calabresi saw him trying to steal a sandwich from a job site trailer. Vincent didn't call the cops. He said 6 words that changed Richard's life. You want to eat? You work. Vincent gave Richard a job, paid him under the table, taught him the construction business from the ground up. More than that, he taught him something Richard never forgot. I'm not giving you charity, kid. I'm giving you a shot. What you do with it, that's on you. Richard worked. He saved. He put himself through community college at night. He started his own small contracting business at 23. By 30, he'd bought his first building. By 40, he'd built an empire. And in his wallet, every single day for 50 years, he carried one thing that reminded him where he came from. That photograph. The only picture he had of Vincent Calabresi, the man who saved his life. Vincent died in 1998. Heart attack. He never lived to see what Richard became, but Richard never forgot. And on December 18th, when Richard stepped out of his office building at 6:45 p.m., distracted by emails, exhausted from his $400 million deal, He didn't notice his wallet slip out of his coat pocket. He didn't see it fall. He didn't know that the one irreplaceable thing he owned was lying on a wet Manhattan sidewalk. But someone else did. Marco Torres, 12 years old, 4'9", 83 pounds. He'd been collecting bottles and cans on the corner of 53rd and Lexington for 3 hours that night. He'd made $4.35. That would buy him $2 menu cheeseburgers and a small fries at the McDonald's on 51st Street. If he ate slowly, he could make it last. If he saved half for breakfast, even better. This was survival math. Marco had gotten very good at survival math. 6 months earlier, Marco's life looked completely different. His mother, Isabella Torres, worked as a housekeeper at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. She worked doubles most weeks. She was tired all the time. But every Sunday, no matter what, she made arroz con pollo and they ate together at their tiny kitchen table in Washington Heights. She braided his hair before school. She checked his homework every night. She told him he was going to be somebody. And then in June, Isabella collapsed at work. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 3 months. She lasted 4. She died on October 19th at 3:17 in the morning. Marco was holding her hand. Her last words to him were these: "You're stronger than you know, mi amor. Stay good. No matter what happens, stay good." Marco's father had left when he was 3. No forwarding address, no phone number that worked. Social services found a distant aunt in New Jersey willing to take him temporarily. Her name was Linda. She wasn't a bad person, but her boyfriend Ray made it very clear he didn't want another mouth to feed. Marco lasted 19 days. Marco overhearing argument through thin apartment wall. "The kid goes to foster care or I go. Your choice, Linda." Marco didn't wait to hear her answer. At 4 a.m. on November 7th, he packed everything he owned into his school backpack, took the $67 his mother had hidden in a coffee can, and walked out. He'd heard the stories about foster care, about group homes, about kids who went in and came out different, harder, lost. His mother told him to stay good. He didn't know how to stay good in a system that treated kids like inventory. So he ran. Montage, subway stations, church steps, public library, 24-hour diners. For 47 days, Marco survived. He kept a small green notebook in his jacket pocket. Every morning he made a pencil mark, 1 dash for each day. He had rules. Rule 1, stay clean. Public restrooms, soap from dispensers. People don't see dirty kids as kids, they see problems. Rule 2, stay invisible. No cops, no security guards, no questions he couldn't answer. Rule 3, stay in the light. Libraries, diners, places where people wouldn't ask why a 12-year-old was alone. And Rule 4, the most important one, the one his mother's voice repeated in his head every single day, stay good. Marco's hands, cold and cracked, picking up the black leather wallet from wet pavement. Which is why when Marco saw that wallet fall from Richard Castellano's pocket at 6:43 p.m., when he picked it up and felt how heavy it was, when he opened it just enough to see the thick stack of $100 bills inside, he didn't think about keeping it, not for 1 second. Marco's face, determination, fear, resolve. He thought about his mother. He thought about her last words, and he started running. Feet pounding wet pavement, heavy breathing, traffic noise, 4 city blocks. That's how far Marco chased that SUV. Marco running, weaving through crowds, splashing through puddles, 53rd Street to 52nd, 52nd to 51st, 51st to 50th, 50th to 49th. His backpack, everything he owned in the world, bounced against his spine with every step. His sneakers, 2 sizes too big and held together with duct tape filled with freezing water. His lungs burned. He had asthma. He hadn't had an inhaler in 6 weeks, but he didn't stop. Traffic light turns red, SUV forced to stop. And then, finally, the light at 49th Street turned red. The SUV stopped. Marco stumbled up to the rear passenger window, gasping for air, and started pounding. Marco, breathless, desperate, Sir, please! Bodyguard stepping out, hand moving toward concealed weapon. The bodyguard, 6'3", former Secret Service, stepped out of the front seat. His hand moved instinctively toward the concealed firearm under his jacket. This was his job: protect the principal, neutralize threats. And in Manhattan in December, a kid chasing your vehicle and banging on windows? That looked like a threat. Back away from the car, now. Marco, holding up wallet, shaking. No, please, he dropped this. I just want to give it back. Richard Castellano's face appearing in window, seeing Marco clearly for the first time. And that's when Richard looked, really looked. He saw the wallet first, his wallet, the monogrammed RJC on the leather. Then he saw the boy holding it, soaked through, shivering, shoes falling apart. Dirt under his fingernails, but face recently washed, eyes that looked too old for 12, and something else, something Richard recognized. He saw himself, 50 years ago, standing on a different corner in different worn-out shoes, with that same look in his eyes, the look that said, I'm trying, I'm still trying, please see me. Paul, stand down, open the door. Get in, son, just for a minute. I want to ask you something. Marco didn't move at first. Stranger danger, every instinct screaming. But there was something in the man's voice, something that didn't sound like the adults who usually looked through him like he was invisible. This man was looking at him, seeing him. Marco climbed in. The seat was warmer than anywhere Marco had slept in 47 days. The air smelled like leather and expensive cologne, and a world Marco had only ever seen through windows. Richard reached into the center console and pulled out a bottle of water, handed it to Marco without a word. Marco drank like he'd been lost in a desert, because he had been. What's your name? Marco Torres. How old are you, Marco? 12, sir. You chased my car for 4 blocks to give this back? Yes, sir. It fell when you got in your car. I saw it. Did you look inside? No, sir. Why not? It's not mine to look at. Richard's expression shifts, surprise, then respect. Richard pulled out the cash, counted it slowly, $8,240. He held it up so Marco could see. You know what this is? Money, sir. More money than most people carry, more money than you've probably ever seen. Marco nods, uncomfortable. You could have kept this, disappeared into the city. I would never have found you. Who would have known? I would have known. Richard Castellano had negotiated billion-dollar deals with men in $1,000 suits who would lie about their own mothers for a 2% advantage. He'd shaken hands with politicians who smiled while planning betrayals. He'd built an empire in a world where integrity was a liability and everyone had an angle. And here was a 12-year-old homeless kid who just said no to $8,000 because he would have known. Where are your parents, Marco? My mom, she died, cancer, 2 months ago. Your father? Gone, has been since I was little. Where do you live? Marco looks down, doesn't answer. Richard, understanding immediately, you're on the street. Marco nods, barely. How long? 47 days. You count them? Marco pulls out small green notebook, shows the pencil marks, everyone. Richard taking the notebook, looking at the careful marks. His jaw tightens, and that's when Richard made a decision. Not a business decision, not a calculated move, a human decision. The kind of decision that Vincent Calabrese made 50 years ago when he saw a hungry kid trying to steal a sandwich. Marco, I'm going to give you 2 choices. Listen very carefully. Marco sits up straighter, listening with every fiber of his being. Choice 1, I give you $10,000, cash, right now. You take it and go, no questions asked, no strings, it's yours. If you're smart with it, that'll last you 6 months, maybe more. After that, you're back where you started, but it's your choice. Choice 2, you come with me, tonight. I put you in a real school, a real home. You work for it, grades, behavior, effort. I'm not adopting you, Marco. I'm not your father, but I'm investing in you. You prove yourself, I'll fund your education, all the way through college if you earn it. But you waste this chance, you're on your own. One shot. That's all you get. $10,000 in cash, or a chance at a completely different life. Marco's face, overwhelmed, terrified, hopeful. This isn't charity, Marco. I don't do charity. I'm betting on you because you just proved you have something that can't be taught. Marco barely breathing. What? Integrity. You chose honesty when you had every reason not to, when no one was watching, when you were starving. Richard pulls out the photograph from his wallet, young Richard and Vincent. You see this man? His name was Vincent. 50 years ago, he gave me the same choice I'm giving you now. Marco stares at the photo. He's the reason I'm sitting in this car instead of sleeping in a subway station. He's been dead for 26 years, and this photograph is the only thing I have left of him. Richard's voice cracks slightly. First time we've heard emotion. If I'd lost this wallet tonight, I'd have lost him all over again. You gave me back something I can't replace. He looks directly at Marco. Let me do the same for you. Silence. Marco's eyes filling with tears he's too proud to let fall. Why? Why would you do this? Because someone did it for me. Because you just proved the world still has people worth saving. And because I'm tired of being the only one who remembers that kindness isn't weakness. So what's it gonna be, Marco? Cash in 6 months? Or a chance in a future? Marco looks at his hands, at the wallet, at the photograph, at Richard's face, and Marco Torres, 12 years old, homeless for 47 days, who'd been counting each morning like a prisoner marking a cell wall, made the choice that would change everything. Choice 2? I want choice 2. Richard extends his hand. Then we have a deal. They shake hands, billionaire and street kid, a promise sealed. St. Regis Hotel. This young man needs a hot meal and a real bed. SUV pulling away into Manhattan traffic. Marco looking out window at the city that tried to swallow him, now seeing it differently. Montage beginning, hotel suite, room service. Marco seeing his reflection in a real bathroom mirror. That first night, Marco Torres took his first hot shower in 47 days. He ate filet mignon and mashed potatoes from room service and didn't know which fork to use. Richard sat across from him and taught him, not with judgment, with patience. The same patience Vincent had shown a hungry 14-year-old from Brooklyn 50 years earlier. While Marco slept, the first real sleep in weeks, Richard made phone calls. To his personal attorney, I need guardianship paperwork, temporary with option for permanent, fast. To his assistant, find me the best private school in Manhattan, one that understands second chances. To his own therapist, yes, billionaires have therapists. I just met a kid who reminded me why I survived. Morning, new clothes. Marco staring at himself in a mirror, clean, warm, confused. The next morning, Richard took Marco to a tailor on Fifth Avenue, the same tailor who'd made suits for Richard for 30 years. Marco got fitted for his first clothes that actually fit, a winter coat that wasn't donated, shoes without holes. He cried in the dressing room when he thought no one was looking. Richard pretended not to notice. Private school, imposing building, well-dressed students. 3 days later, they sat in the office of headmaster Dr. Patricia Chen at Riverside Preparatory Academy. Tuition, $58,000 a year. Waiting list, 340 families. Mr. Castellano, I appreciate your generosity, but this boy has been out of formal education for months. His transcripts show he survived 47 days on the streets of Manhattan without stealing, without hurting anyone, without losing his humanity. He chased my car for 4 blocks in freezing rain to return something that didn't belong to him when he was starving. If he has that kind of character, Dr. Chen, you can teach him the rest. Marco, can you tell me why you want to be here? I want to be somebody my mom would be proud of. Probationary acceptance, 6 months. You maintain a C average or higher, you stay. Deal? Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Marco walking through school halls, kids staring, whispering. The first month was hell. Marco was behind in every subject. The other kids whispered, charity case, homeless kid, Castellano's project. He ate lunch alone. He studied in the library until it closed. He wanted to quit every single day. Weekly dinner, Richard and Marco at a quiet restaurant. But every Tuesday night, Richard took him to dinner. Never asked about grades, always asked about effort. Did you try your hardest this week? Yes, sir. Then that's all I expect. Test paper. 98% written in red at the top 6 weeks in. Marco scored a 98% on a history test. He ran all the way to Richard's office to show him. Burst through the doors of a board meeting without knocking. Security almost tackled him. Richard held up a hand, stopped them, looked at the test. You earned this, now go earn another one. By the end of his first year, Marco Torres made honor roll. At the end of year ceremony, he received the Most Improved Student Award. Richard Castellano sat in the back row, didn't applaud louder than anyone else, but when Marco looked back and saw him there, Richard nodded. Once, that nod meant everything. Present day, Marco at age 16, Richard at age 2 years later. Marco Torres is 14 years old, straight A student, captain of the debate team, talking about Harvard. And every Thursday after school, he goes to Richard's office, does his homework in the conference room, and listens when Richard talks about business, not as charity, as mentorship, as investment. Richard and Marco volunteering, serving food. On Saturdays, they volunteer together at a youth shelter in the Bronx. It was Marco's idea. Mr. Castellano, we should help kids like I was. You gave me a chance. I want to give chances too. Then let's build something. 6 months later, Richard Castellano stood in front of the New York City Press Corps and made an announcement. 4 years ago, a 12-year-old boy taught me something I'd not forgotten in 50 years of business. He taught me that integrity still exists, that kindness isn't extinct, that one person choosing to do the right thing when no one is watching can change the world. Today, I'm announcing the creation of the Second Chance Initiative, a foundation dedicated to finding homeless and at-risk youth with potential and giving them what someone once gave me, an opportunity. Initial funding, $50 million. And I'm proud to introduce our Director of Youth Outreach. Marco steps up to the podium, 16 years old, confident, alive, Marco Torres. In its first year, the Second Chance Initiative helped 47 young people. The number wasn't random, it was intentional. One for every day Marco survived on the streets. By year 3, that number grew to 347. Kids who were invisible became visible. Kids who were hopeless found hope. All because one 12-year-old chose honesty over survival, and one billionaire remembered what it felt like to be seen Richard and Marco standing on a street corner, the same corner where Marco stopped the SUV 4 years ago. This is where we end, where it all began, 53rd and Lexington, 4 years later. You ever think about what would have happened if I'd kept the wallet? Every day. Really? Every single day. And I'm grateful you didn't. You gave me everything, Mr. Castellano. No, Marco, you gave me back something worth more than $2 billion. What? A reason to believe the next generation is worth investing in. They stand together, watching the city move around them. You know what Vincent told me the last time I saw him? What? He said, Richard, you don't owe me anything, but if you ever get the chance to be someone's Vincent, don't waste it. Richard puts his hand on Marco's shoulder. You gave me that chance. No, sir, you gave me mine. The Second Chance Initiative has helped 347 young people find homes, education, and futures. It started with one wallet. One choice. One moment when integrity mattered more than survival. Marco Torres didn't just return a wallet that December night. He returned something Richard Castellano had lost somewhere in 50 years of building an empire. Faith. Faith that there are still people in this world who choose right over easy, who choose honesty over advantage, who prove that character isn't built in boardrooms or bank accounts. It's built in the moments when no one is watching and you have to decide who you're going to be. What will you choose? If this story moved you, don't just watch it. Share it. Share it with someone who's lost faith. Share it with someone who needs to know that one choice can change everything. Hit subscribe if you want more stories about real people making impossible choices, and leave a comment telling me, what would you have done with that wallet? Because your answer matters.